All right, people. Another Sunday night, another recap show. House of the Dragon, Season 2, Episode 3. The title of which we still do not know because they never released these fucking titles until the next morning. And it's actually really, really annoying. I'm joined once again by my normal co-host, Eli Holicky, as well as a new addition to the team, the latest addition from Zeta Chi Zeta, our fraternity, Spencer Amir Southwell. Spence, happy to have you on, man.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be here. I'm very excited. There's a lot to talk about. So.
Yes, indeed. There is a lot
Yeah.
to talk about. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get this going. This is Dragon Watch Recap, Episode 3.
I was hours following King Viserys' death.
My brother was a slave to his omens and portents. Anything to make his feckless reign appear to have purpose.
What are we going to do about it?
Did you really think that you could just fly about the realm and try and steal my brother's throne?
Innocent make us kings. Dragons did.
All right, people. Episode 3. There is a lot to cover here. I mean, there's so much that happens, but I think overall the first thing that we can say about this episode is we are on the march to war. It's official. Blood has been spilled on both sides. Shit is heating up. Shit that barely actually connects to the conflict that we saw in the first 2 episodes is already happening. That's what kicks off the episode with the Bracken Blackwood conflict. Say that one 10 times fast. And then it just spills out. Blood has been spilling all over the realm. And there's like plans being made, and there's people being sent away, and it's really sad, and it's reminiscent of some really, really other sad things. But gentlemen, before we get into the nitty gritty, Eli, starting with you, and then now to Spencer, what were your overall thoughts on this episode?
I'd say phenomenal episode. The building has continued from episode 2, only we're really starting to ramp up. Everyone is starting to put their eggs in their baskets, if you will, and everyone's got their sights set on Harrenhal, which is going to be the key to basically fortifying the Riverlands, which geographically is one of the most important locations in Westeros when it comes to war, probably the most important. And everyone's ramping up the pressure. Man, I'm just excited for what's to come next episode personally. But I know we're focusing on this one, so all I got to say is very solid episode. I think it even topped last week's, and I'm very excited to see how it keeps on progressing.
Most definitely. The thing that I've been the most that has been the most appealing to me about this season is how each episode is just progressively built on top of another. Like, they promised us a massive conflict at the end of last season, and now the show is truly delivered as far as escalating the conflict to like immeasurable heights, to the point where now there is no going back from war. Spencer, your first time on the podcast, what were your thoughts on this episode as a whole, and really just this season of House of the Dragon so far?
I think the directors are doing an amazing job with the build-up, regardless of anything. It is kind of reminding me of a shortened feeling of a Marvel build-up, but just in one entire season. I mean, season 1, I think we definitely got a good relationship between the houses 200 years ago, before the main series. But now that season 2 is actually kicking off, and we're seeing these 2 characters, 2 houses, Rhaenyra is clearly upset that she has not gotten her rightful place on the throne. But I think it's quite impressive how the directors are building up this conflict. Already seeing war happening without Rhaenyra or the other houses causing any sort of conflict or war. I just think overall, good episode. I feel the tension. I definitely do. And we are definitely at a place where we're going to see bloodshed. There's no way to avoid it.
I mean, it's inevitable. It's absolutely inevitable at this point.
Real quick, I honestly didn't expect them to go as hard as they did for the Blackwood Bracken conflict.
Yeah.
Because, I see these 4 kids just oh, it's a little bit of beef. Like, it's kind of funny how they made it start out. And then when it cut and then they zoom out and show all the bodies, I was like, wow. It makes you wonder how much that scene, that's the cost to do that scene, how many extras they needed just to have dead bodies. Honestly, I love it, though. It was a great way to start off the conflict.
Well, the thing that was so great about that opening scene is it kind of pulled a little bit of season 1 trickery, where remember, there's at the end of season 1, there's supposed to be some major battles that are going on, but they literally just cut around it by having Tyrion knocked out, showing the after effect of Whispering Wood. That's kind of what they did here, where it's okay, obviously the battle between the Brackens and the Blackwoods at Whispering Mill or something like that.
Whispering. I thought it was Whispering Wood.
Whispering Wood, yeah. So that's Whispering Wood. That's the first like major conflict of the show, and they literally just cut past it, just show the after effects, and that's kind of what sells it on the opening scene. You know, it's funny because if I'm not mistaken, I believe that possibly one of those kids, or possibly one of the rulers or knights or something in that fight, was one of the kids who proposed to Rhaenyra in the beginning of season 1. You know, when they were having that fight, and then they ended up getting into a fight,
actually.
and the smaller kid, who I believe was a Bracken, killed the older kid who was a Blackwood. So
Right.
I thought that was pretty interesting right there. So that's kind of what kicks us off. So the episode kind of starts a little green heavy and then gets more black heavy near the end. Definitely not at all any problems with that phrasing that I just said right there. What's it called? Kristen Cole attends his first meeting as Hand of the King. I mean, geez, it's like this guy's in an active competition to just get worse with every single episode. I don't know how you do that. I don't understand how you do that.
At this point, you have to respect it, to be honest, because he's like climbing the ladder. Even though as sick as he is, he's climbing the ladder as a character in the kingdom. I just think that one, he's sick. He's not well.
No,
sending Eric on into just suicide into the kingdom just to go murder, assassin Rhaenyra is.
Yeah, I mean
he's not what.
He's chasing glory, that's for sure.
He is chasing glory indeed. Yeah, his plan to rally forces from all of the neighboring castles, which all have pledged loyalty to Rhaenyra, convert them to his side, and then march for Harrenhal. You know, which Daemon has already taken by this point because he flew there and took it in 3 seconds flat, which I thought was hilarious. I think that's like some beautiful irony juxtaposition. Daemon did not have a lot of screen time in this episode, but they made very, very effective use of it. Also, we got an introduction to a couple of major characters that are going to play a major hand in the conflict coming forward, some more than others. The first one being Sir Simon Strong, the current ruler / Castellan of Harrenhal himself, being, who is it? Larys Strong's great uncle, I believe. Is because you mentioned that Larys Strong and Harwin Strong's father, Sir Robert Strong, I believe, was his nephew. So you have that portrayed by Sir Simon Russell Beale. And then you also have the introduction there of Alice Rivers, the sorceress, the Melisandre stand-in, portrayed by Gail Rankin from Glow. She portrayed She-Wolf in Glow on Netflix, for anybody who remembers that little show. So
that's where I've seen her.
Yes,
I did not make that connection.
Lucky. That's what I'm here for. So
what would I do without you, Dom?
Obviously, a lot to unpack here. First and foremost, we talked a little bit about Kristen Cole. Daemon, let's talk about him. We don't get a lot of him in this season, but I mean, obviously continuing off of that argument that he had with Rhaenyra, the fact is he takes Harrenhal, but at this point we don't know if it's for him or if he's still pledging for Rhaenyra. He claims that it's still for Rhaenyra, but I mean, what are our thoughts on Daemon real quick, since we don't get to spend as much time with him in this episode?
I really liked kind of seeing his inner conflict with that little vision he had. I think really tells us all we need to know in terms of kind of how he's grappling with everything. Like, I mean, is it more about his ambitions? He says it's for Rhaenyra, but I mean, he seems to be very conflicting or hypocritical in some of the actions he takes. And I think the image of Rhaenyra I really like the poetry in that scene of her sewing the child's head back together, just kind of like, I'm just here to clean up all your messes. And that maybe shows that he does feel immense guilt for what he does to Rhaenyra. And I really like that transparency that the writers gave us without actually like saying it outright.
Yeah, and also the fact that they brought back Millie Alcock, obviously, who portrayed younger Rhaenyra in the first half of season 1. I'm like, I was waiting. I'm like, they're gonna find a way to sneak her back in here somewhere.
I mean, they have to with how good of a performance she.
She was like that was a true breakout performance. She's gonna be Supergirl now. So she was cast in as Supergirl in the upcoming Supergirl movie that's coming out in 2 years.
Just to actually continue off what you were saying, I do think that with Daemon, it is actually kind of nice to see exactly where we are with him mentally, because I feel like we've never gotten anything like that beforehand. So, seeing the visions of what was that message he got towards the end of the episode where he was like, "This is where you're gonna die."
Yeah, this is where you're gonna die. Yeah, which is true, by the way, for those who've read Fire and Blood.
Yeah. So, like Eli was saying, we're gonna get a taste of what's probably gonna happen in this series later on, and on top of that, we're also seeing some of his anger that he had with his brother, not trusting him, and what we had last season. So I think it's all coming together now it's playing. We're getting a clear picture of where we're headed with Damon. He is progressing though. He is trying to build up that castle. What was the name of the castle again? Remember?
Harrenhal.
Harrenhal, right? So war starting now. Yes, he did mention that they are losing counts of soldiers, but I do kind of respect his amount of initiative, trying to at least benefit the Rhaenyra's side and gaining back control. So,
Indeed.
Very
Indeed.
ambitious fellow.
Very ambitious
Yeah.
indeed. Yeah. So now let's go back to King's Landing. There's a lot that's happens at King's Landing as always. First off, Aegon. Oh man, Aegon right now, he is in his just not being able to catch a break phase at all. He is first, he's like, I'm gonna ride out Sir Kristen Cole's forces. I'm gonna prove Sunfire is gonna be just as good as as Vhagar, even though Sunfire's barely a tenth the size of Vhagar. Not
and
even.
Vhagar's just a behemoth.
Vhagar's a living like not even a tank. Like it's just like a flying whale. That's
the
what Vhagar
second largest dragon in history.
in history.
Valyria.
Well, it was said that Vhagar around the time of her death was roughly the size of Balerion. That she had grown quite a lot.
In the
Oh,
book,
wow.
she was maybe about 10% smaller, but yeah.
Okay, but like the point is that Vhagar, for having lived as long as it has, ultimately is the size that it is. So, but Aegon continues to want to prove himself. He's ready to lace himself up in the Conqueror's armor, and Sir Larys Strong has to persuade him not to go, which I think was hilarious. I just think that what's it called? I think that Larys Strong's role in this show is becoming like even more pronounced. Obviously, it causes the way that he's like definitely able to like subtly manipulate Aegon with like a rumor that he totally made up. Like nobody actually said that. I guarantee you. He so obviously made that up. Not to mention the fact that obviously, for a lot of reasons, it would be better for Aegon to stay safe behind the walls of King's Landing rather than fly out. Obviously, given that we know what happens in the next episode, we know that's not going to happen. But still, he is still the king as of right now, even if he is a usurper. So he should probably stay inside the walls. But of course, he doesn't want to. I mean, guys, where are we?
He's bloodthirsty.
Well, yeah, I was about to say, where are we with Aegon? Because like at the same time, Aegon is just as sympathetic as he is, an idiot who wants to prove himself as the ruler and is ultimately letting his insecurities out. He truly is like the anti-Joffrey in a way. It's like one of the most fascinating character comparisons to their original portrayal that I've seen in a spinoff in a minute.
Yeah, I agree.
From what I think, he has a good heart, but he's still a naive kid, really, and I don't think he really understands the real world. Just he's lived in the castle all his life. Now he's suddenly just told he's basically the king of the world and can do whatever he wants, and kind of seeing his him maybe reverting a little bit back to his old kind of douchebag fuckboyish ways with his buddies that are just now part of the new Kingsguard.
It's literally like
to the whorehouse.
It's literally like just watching the soup support Homelander on the boys. Like they're just sucking up to him nonstop.
Yeah, and I know we talked about it last week. I thought he had a great performance in the most recent episode, but I think this week even topped it, where it's just like I definitely did feel a lot more sympathetic towards him.
Mm-hmm.
Just he really was, I don't know how to word it, but just he felt a lot more human this episode, where we kind of see those conflicting sides of his personality.
Well, we definitely see both sides of his personality, obviously based on what follows afterwards. First in the tavern, which I'll come back to because that introduces another important character. But then obviously the big one, finding Aemond in the brothel. That's
I felt so bad.
That's a tough moment. We know that cuts deep for Aemond for so many different reasons. And
he was apologetic towards what he did. At the end of last season, killing Lucerys, he felt bad, and that was his only like outlet in a way. And then here comes Aegon, totally ruins the moment,
totally blows up his life. And like the thing is, the two of them both were like still conflicted as far as like whether they were going to go out, and then it was decided they were both going to stay because they need Vhagar to guard the city and they need Aegon obviously there. But now obviously this is going to prompt them both to go out because we know Aegon wants to prove himself, and now Aemond is going to be like, I need to get as far away from my brother as possible. And that's going to be so interesting as far as following their motivation as well. See, this is what I love about the show so much. The show is taking all the factual events that we know happen in the book and filling in all the gaps with all like the juicy character moments that lead up to those events.
Completely, like I say it every week, but it completely recontextualizes like some of the things that happen, or at least why they happen, right? And we're undoing so much more about these characters than we ever could have in the book, just because of how the book was written, because it was written by someone who was not alive or around, like, when
Right.
everything happened. So he's taking everything from written sources or stories passed down, and that's what I do appreciate about adapting something like Fire and Blood, is that there is enough of like ambiguity in there where they can make some things different if they need to without detracting or changing too much, and that's what I thought is really cool. And looks like we
Oh, it
lost
looks like
Spencer.
yeah, well, it looks like we got an internet cutout for a second there. We'll see.
Ugh,
We'll
that's
see
not
what
good.
happens.
But
It's been happening a lot recently.
yeah, I hear you. But in terms of Aemon, I want to talk about Aemon for a second, because I thought Aemon, like, just the slyness he kind of had with egging Aegon on, like,
Yeah, that
it'd be better
was
if you were just safe, but kind of just the tone of his voice made it seem like, maybe you're a bit of a coward, maybe you
yeah.
should go, and kind of, especially the face he had, just as kind of he was walking away, right, kind of said everything, right, and
It cut deep. That cut
yeah.
really deep for so many different reasons.
Well, I
honestly.
almost feel like, and it says a lot about, we learned a lot about his character too, in ways like, you kind of just don't expect it with a show like this. Like, he still sleeps with the same woman every night, every week, when he could literally have anyone he wants. Is, it kind of speaks more to, his loyalty. Hey, he's back. Look at
There
that.
he is.
And,
Apologies.
yeah, no worries. But no, I thought it was very interesting, and I almost wonder if that woman is more loyal to him and might be
Probably.
willing to spill the beans of whatever happens.
Probably.
And, yeah. So I really liked where the conflict, not really a conflict, but semi-conflict between Aegon and Aemon is heading.
Yeah, I agree. And then obviously the other big one is we get the third dragon seed. So I've been talking about them for a little bit now. I've kind of been like, I should have called this section like my dragon seed head count, basically. So we got obviously Hugh Hammer, episode 1, the writer of Vermithor, Adam of Hull, later Adam Valerian. In episode 2, the future writer of Sea Smoke. We also got a little Sea Smoke insert there when it was kind of explained by Rhaenyra to Mysaria. And this episode, we have Ulf the White, future writer of Silverwing, and he kind of, his introduction, he's kind of explaining his bastard relationship to, to the to the Targaryens via Jaehaerys. Nonetheless, Eli, you wanna break down if that was accurate as far as like his actual heritage, or because I believe that was just rumored in Fire and Blood.
I'm not gonna lie. Pretty much all I remember was that he was a Targaryen bastard. I don't remember his exact parentage.
Like, I know that much.
I believe what they said in the show is right. I mean, granted, I haven't read the book in years, but to my knowledge, like, he wasn't a character I really paid attention to a lot when I did read it. But no, I liked that scene just because it also says a lot, kind of just about, like, it makes the world feel a lot more grounded when he's just like, yeah, Rhaenyra is the one true queen. I'm loyal to her, and I'm a dragon seed. I'm gonna answer the call and just take up arms against the king. And then the king walks in. He's like, glory to the crown. Like, hey, sir, yeah, like,
yeah, that was great.
And his buddies just teasing. Oh, I would absolutely do that to anyone if I saw them do that.
That would be hilarious. Yeah. What did you think of Ulf's introduction?
I think it was kind of humbling a little bit. It was like he came from a humbling background, that he comes from so much royalty and all these different houses.
But never really got any of the luxury with it.
Exactly. And the guys at the table are just looking at him like, who is this guy? Like, they don't believe him. They think he's full of crap. So I think overall, it's interesting. Maybe we see later on how he might progress, because I'm sure they're going to continue narrating his perspective.
Well, like I said, him, Hugh, and Adam end up riding Three of the Dragons along with Rhaenyra's forces. So, and then play crucial parts in the war to come. So that's kind of the definition of the dragon seed, basically, to kind of fill you in. Basically, is that after certain events transpire in the next episode, the Blacks find themselves in need more dragon riders. So they put out feelers to basically anybody who could potentially think that they could tame and ride a dragon, And so it's basically essentially like a tournament that takes place over a couple days of like people attempting to find and tame dragons. And there's a lot of bloodshed that happens, but
people
it's
fucking die.
Oh yeah. Well, that's what happens when you fuck with dragons. You get burned.
I mean, I like how they're handpicking these characters together. It's kind of eventually we're going to see a huge, alliance from different sides that will come together as
The,
you know.
the most compelling part about all their characters' introduction is how they're all working class people. They're not like royalty, and I think that's what's kind of the most important, even more important than being bastards. Because the thing is that even with Jon Snow, who was the reigning bastard of Game of Thrones, he still grew up in a royal family. But the whole thing about bastards,
lived in a castle,
right? And the whole thing about bastards is that 9 out of 10 times they're baseborn, right? Obviously, they were when royalty had kids out of wedlock with common folk, ultimately, and so there were people that sure have royal blood in their veins, but they obviously have no access. But the fact that it's like all working class people, you know, people who are like hanging out in pubs, have real jobs and real responsibilities, even though Adam obviously resides on Driftmark, so he's got more of like a, you know, a drifter, loner, hippie lifestyle. You know, he still obviously is lesser known and baseborn. His brother just simply works in Lord Corliss's army, so he has like the benefit of that. So I really like that aspect of how these characters are being introduced. So now let's head back to, well, we get one more moment, ultimately, with the Greens, and that is Sir Criston Cole riding out with then another big character introduction, Alicent's brother, Gwaine Hightower. First of all, can we just talk about that name for a second? Gwaine. The fact that somebody actually came up with that, it's one of the funniest things I've ever heard. And the fact that he's portrayed by Freddie Fox, who is just been killing it recently in Slow Horses. Unfortunately, his character just died in a rather hilarious way in this most recent season in Slow Horses. But just talk about the latest poster child for just British smugness. And like the funny thing is that he has every right to hate Criston Cole. And Criston Cole has already proven himself to be a piece of shit so often, but he still somehow is like more unlikable already than Criston Cole. And I don't even know how that's possible.
For sure.
I'm assuming just because of like the blatant like smugness with which he carries himself. Ultimately.
I feel like Criston Cole is just that guy you love to hate. Like he's just gonna be an insufferable prick. But honestly, I feel like his actor's doing such a great job at like making us hate him. You know, because what's nice about the whole ambiguity with the conflict, like you know, who's the rightful heir, you can make arguments to both sides because like George R. R. Martin is famous for saying this himself, like they never outlined a clear succession plan, and that's why different people want to interpret it just for their own means to power. So you know, you can make arguments for the Greens and the Blacks, but just having characters that you can hate, especially like having a Criston Cole that like is unanimously just despised by everyone watching, is I think a really smart move to
make. Said this last week that like there's really only 3 actually bad people on Team Green, and the rest are kind of all just misguided or trapped in situations that are out of their control. It's only Otto Hightower, who's now gone, and also all of his smithereens. Laris Strong and Criston Cole. You know, Aegon unfortunately has like gone down the path. He's like become the Anakin Skywalker, but that's not his fault ultimately. Like everything that happened was ultimately out of his control. So I don't necessarily blame Aemond, not so much, but Aemond also is mature enough to be able to take it. So obviously,
I do want to say one thing though before you know you go on to whatever other topic that you have. I do want to appreciate Otto's development over time because I did not like Otto because to me he seemed very manipulative, trying to get climb the ladder, trying to get to royalty, which in fact he did. But I think as we see him progress, he's noticing Aegon's flaws, and they're not. You know, he's making really bad decisions. Remember when he hung all of the
right?
Oh my.
Last week, all the rat cats.
Yeah, all the rat cats.
We finally do see in this episode that they got cheese.
Yeah. Oh no! Well, we saw that last episode. They got cheese last episode too.
Yeah.
Oh,
exactly.
Oh,
no. That shot was just like to show like the passage of time and like how fast the corpse is running.
Oh, I'm not gonna lie. That's the first time I saw his corpse. I must have been in the bathroom or something.
And I honestly,
I genuinely don't remember.
And I felt bad that Otto left. I was like, he is your last saving grace right now. Like he's the only one that is going to genuinely give you advice that is going to be like unhinged and not sugarcoated if you're messing up. And again, he did. So
the problem is Otto just being as cold as he is, kind of, he kind of gives his advice without emotion, but Aegon is not someone to think, logically, and he pretty much all the decisions he does make are almost entirely on emotion, just whether it's hanging out with his buddies or trying to get revenge or whatever it might be. So we're definitely going to see how his impulsiveness is going to impact the realm and the war in the next episode.
Literally in the next episode.
Literally
yeah,
in the next
so
episode.
excited. I feel like literally we're just being like, but then we're being like, yeah, this episode was good, but the next episode, man, that's gonna be the shit. You know? I feel like that's
Yeah.
I feel like
not to take away from this episode.
Not take
because
away from this
in my
episode.
opinion, it was the best episode.
And
of the
apparently,
season so
also,
far.
we found out that we could find out the episode's name by listening to the official podcast after. But I'm like, why do I have to do that? Why can't I just? Why can't they just release the episode names beforehand?
Yeah.
But
what are we calling this week's episode, Dom?
right now I was calling it Departures, but I don't think that's the name of it because I got last week's name wrong. Okay, okay, this one is called The Burning Mill. That's what this episode is called. And the next week we know is A Dance of
That's fair.
Dragons.
That's fair.
Yeah. So
That's fair.
now we're moving back to Team Black. Like I said, we talked about Damon taking Harrenhal. Now we're talking about Rhaenyra. First things first, obviously, the thing that happens that I love is Kristen Cole and Gwen Hightower are already, they're not even like 10 feet outside the gates and they already almost get attacked by Baela riding Moondancer. I know that's an original scene that did not necessarily was confirmed in the books, but still, that's hilarious that they almost got taken out by a teenage girl and what? Barely fully grown dragon.
They were she was very close.
Moondancer's slightly bigger than Arax. You know, if we're going to like the dragon scales for a second, you know, we know that Moondancer obviously is on the smaller side, but Moondancer is nimble and can hold her own. You know, so I thought that was I thought that already establishing Cole and Gwen. I'm gonna have so much fun saying that name for the rest of it. Already establishing Cole and Gwen's relationship first off was just hilarious, and then see the continuation of that was great. But unfortunately, it alerts Rhaenyra that unfortunately she can no longer wait for the Northern and Vale forces to come and save them. Unfortunately, as we see, the forces are on the move, so Rhaenyra unfortunately has to make her move. She can't, and is considering that she's heard no word from Daemon as far as Harrenhal goes. She is forced to start making her moves, and that begins with her. The infamous act of sending her kids away, which all kind of has like just once again negative effects going in all sorts of directions. She has.
You think she'd learn?
Yeah, you would think. Well, these ones ultimately were,
that was a low blow, Eli.
Yeah, but I think that they were.
I'm just saying.
I think the whole thing that she was probably thinking is that like, okay, if we need to make a quick getaway from Dragonstone, it's going to be a lot easier to do if it's just us adults as opposed to dragging a pack of kids, you know? Because like
logically,
Joffrey is still like is not even 10 yet. And or like barely is like not even 10 yet, and then Viserys and Aegon the youngers are both like infants still, so like they're like 3-year-olds. So and obviously, so we know what happens with those two if they put them on that infamous ship ride to Pentos. Oh man, I want to see if, but I think I don't think we're getting that this season, but I think that might be the beginning of season 3, honestly, which would be so awesome. Probably. The battle of the Gullet, that would be absolutely incredible if that kicked off season 3, but. What I was also going to say is then is the focus on Rhaena ultimately and kind of her role. Rhaena, honestly, in the books, always kind of had a thankless role because of the fact that she never had a dragon hatch for her, or when it did, it was already too young. She was kind of forced into this like motherly role in order to kind of take care of Joffrey when she escorted him to the Vale for his safety keeping place, you know, to ward there. So, what's it called? What are your guys' thoughts on that and kind of the attention that she got ultimately, kind of her separation from Baela? And honestly, the scene where Jace had to say goodbye to. Jace has been like kind of hanging in the background just guarding his mother, but like obviously, you know, they're saving that for another big moment too, obviously. You know, we know what's happening next episode with Rook's Rest, and if Battle of the Gullet kicks off season 3, oh boy, these bodies are dropping like flies. But man. So like what did you guys think of what I called the departure, the epicenter of this scene, of this sequence?
You can go first, Spence.
I feel like I do think that she could maybe have a little bit more screen time. I do think that we see her enough in certain scenes, like for example when she stormed there was a cathedral when Aegon was being crowned.
Oh yeah.
That was powerful. Like I'm not like that she was making a statement, and she could have ended them right there and then, but she didn't.
Oh yeah,
that made everybody's lives easier if she had.
I know, right? But that would have removed all conflict. But I do think that we do have a balance between her being nurturing as a mother, but also being somewhat of a warrior too.
Well, we talking about Rhaenyra or Rhaenys?
Rhaenyra.
Okay, well, because that was Rhaenys that busted out of the.
Oh, sorry, my bad. Rhaenys, sorry. Yeah, Rhaenys.
All these names sound similar, man.
Yeah, they're all the same.
Yeah. Rhaenys, apologies. Rhaenys, yeah. I do think that I want to see her more in general.
Oh.
Just in general.
Oh.
We'll be
Oh,
seeing
And
my
it.
I know you know more about the lore than me.
Oh man.
So
Oh man. Oh man. Oh man.
so all I'm saying is that I know there's like some hidden potential with her as a warrior, her as a a writer in general, because we saw a glimpse of it a few episodes back.
Oh
So
yeah. Oh yeah.
So-
I
No,
feel like with Rhaenys, she, I feel like her entire character, she's just been wanting to always punch above her weight and prove that she is just more than just a person that was passed up for the throne because she was a woman. I think the
Yeah.
show has done a really good job of exploring the gender dynamics in a not Marvel way, or not Disney way, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
Just
true.
like
look at the Acolyte for comparison.
Wah, wah.
Dude.
They canceled it. Thank you.
Oh
The-
my gosh, I threw up in my mouth a little bit when you mentioned the Acolyte,
No.
but no, I feel like the show's handled that very well. In terms of, I really like the duality between Rhaenyra and Aegon. In so many ways, just our opposing kings and queen. Just because Aegon is kind of reluctant to step up and even take the mantle in the first place, and has not really shown any qualifications to be a good ruler. But the realm is more accepting of him just because he's got a dick, right? And Rhaenyra, is obviously shown to be the much more capable ruler. Even when she was like 13, 14, she's
Yep.
giving her father really
Very
good
young.
advice in the
Yeah.
in the the Council of the Seven, and just but that's it. Really, I think there's so much room for discussion about the way things play out, and that's why I think this is such a great show, just between all the complexities and the nuances between the gender dynamics, is, I would say, at the
Exactly.
heart.
Exactly.
And yeah, I know you wanted to talk about Rhaenyra for a little bit, and I feel like also kind of that mirroring that duality with her and Aegon this episode, we both kind of see their reluctancy to almost go into war, right? Or
Mhm.
maybe Aegon is, again, more impulsive, more willing, but Rhaenyra is smarter,
Yeah.
and at least trying to find one last solution, even though there really is no possibility of it
No.
at this point. And
There's
that
no
is kind
hope.
of segueing to the conversation with her and Allison at the end. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh!
Yeah.
As
I was about to. Do
as
we
a
want to
lore-
jump
as
there
a-
right away?
oh,
I
we
mean,
gotta. We gotta.
yeah.
As a lore junkie, that hit all
Yeah.
the spots.
Yeah. I
Yes.
mean, oh man, that's just. You want to talk about a tantalizing. You know what this reminded me of so much, and this is kind of why I'm enjoying this season. So a couple of stats check facts for you guys. As you see, I just straightened up in my chair. This is the first season of This is the first season of Game of Thrones to air in the summer since the infamous season 7, which was the only season to not air in April and instead premiered in June, and went until late July. Ultimately, actually, no, I'm wrong. It started in July and went until late August. It was the only season of Game of Thrones to do that. This is the first season since then to do so. And what I like is how each kind of one of the episodes is sort of mirroring the structure of that, but in like a better way. See, this is what I was talking about. I knew that season 7 was still good because the structuring of the episodes was good. It's just kind of the individual stories that were like kind of throwing it off ultimately.
Yeah.
You know?
At that point,
yeah,
I just feel like too many plot lines were abandoned.
So with that being said, ultimately, kind of that's what I'm getting from here. And as far as the mirror imaging between like episode 3 of the season and episode 3 of season 7 with the Queen's Justice, which infamously made my top 10 favorite episodes of Game of Thrones.
I can see what you're saying, yeah.
I was absolutely tantalized by how this ended. This was Jaime meets Olenna Tyrell, but like 3 times over. When Rhaenyra, with help from Asarya, sneaks in and what church was that? Where were they meeting, Eli?
It was just, I think that's just one of the seps. That wasn't
I know it wasn't the great. I know it wasn't the great sept of Baelor. It wasn't that.
No. Well, the thing with the 7, right, is they have multiple temples for the different gods. Just because I honestly couldn't recite them all off the top of my head, but like she says it in the show, the Stranger is one of them. That's like the god of death. The Stranger comes for us all.
Talking about the gods. 7, it's the father, the mother, the warrior, the smith, the maid, the crone, and the stranger.
I'm surprised you knew that and I didn't.
I'm a lore junkie, Eli. Trust me. With this shit,
geez,
I'm a lore junkie.
That was pretty impressive. I can't lie.
Put me in Game.
I couldn't even remember too.
Put me in Song of Ice and Fire trivia. I would absolutely crush it.
Put him in, coach. Put him in.
Oh man. But yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean, this conversation, it's the foundation of everything. It's where this entire conflict started, was obviously between, Rhaenyra versus Alicent, duty versus rebellion, ultimately. And this is kind of where we are as a result of it. And the fact that Rhaenyra seeks to attempt to maintain some sort of peace at the urging of Rhaenys, as well as Rhaenys is like, listen, this is getting to a point where there's no walking back. And soon, if this continues to go, this war will go on for years. And soon people will forget why it even started. They'll just be fighting for the sake of fighting. And
Right.
Rhaenyra realizes that she's got to do something about that. So she finally manages to confront Alicent and begs her to end the war. And they're going back and forth. They're trying to figure out like what happened. And Alicent is still steadfast. She's like, Viserys changed his mind. And Rhaenyra's like, there's no fucking way that would have happened. He was steadfast that day that I was the ruler. Like, what happened? And then it's finally revealed. Alicent reveals exactly what Viserys said. And Rhaenyra, being the only one that would have, like, you put anybody else in that room, you put Daemon, Otto Hightower, Kristen Cole, all of them, you put every single person in that room, the only person that's going to understand what Viserys is actually saying was Rhaenyra, because she was the closest one to him. The fact that
she was the OG heir, right?
Yes.
The prophecy of a song
right.
of Ice
And the whole
Fire.
rule is the fact that this prophecy of the Ice and Fire has to be passed down only to the heir, which is why Daemon was never told, because Viserys never really intended to make him heir. Now, that ties into a whole other thing with Daemon, but as far as this being kind of the cornerstone, and once Rhaenyra realizes that the Aegon that Viserys was talking about was Aegon the Conqueror, not Alicent's Aegon. Alicent, I love that moment right there. That end moment where Alicent is
that
like,
realization.
the realization that she's like, oh my God, I fucked up.
Right.
And this is all my fault. Like, cause that's the worst part.
Yeah.
That, like, Otto was still waiting for Viserys to die, but Alicent was the one that basically gave him the confirmation. It's like, and
he said like wood. She was like wood. I was like,
all stem from a lie. It all
and you really gotta feel for her though, because
you really do.
The only Aegon she knows is her son.
Right.
How could she have known he was talking about the original Aegon?
It was a thing, obviously, that was only exclusive for Targaryens. And if not for the fact that Viserys mistook Alicent for Rhaenyra, she never would have known other's,
And that's what I love. And
that's
what
so
I love
unfortunate
about this, as just someone like from the book, because you just think, oh, the Greens just, they said this all as a lie, right? How could they have known, right? Oh, Viserys died immediately. Let's just say that he named Aegon his heir, right? You maybe think Otto has something to do with that, but it was all just a misunderstanding. And that's what's so tragic about this whole thing. Is that,
it's Shakespearean. It's purely Shakespearean
really
in its execution, and that's what makes it so well done. Honestly, even more so than Game of Thrones. This is more Shakespearean than Game of Thrones at this point.
I never thought that the dots were going to connect in this way. Yeah. I'm so happy that they did.
Yeah. This started originally, I thought it was going to be more Macbethish, but honestly, this has turned into King Lear at this point, and I absolutely love it. Only like post King Lear's death is when the wars all start, and it's just absolutely phenomenal. As far as, but basically that's pretty much how this episode ends. What's it called? So as far as, thoughts for next week, I mean, we obviously know that Rook's Rest is coming, and for everybody who's read the book, they know exactly how this is going to go. But I mean, do we have any other predictions as far as what might happen next week as well?
Oh, geez, man. I'm just ready for the bloodbath.
I think it's just war. I think war is the only thing path right now. Yeah, I can't really think of. It's so unfortunate. This could have been prevented.
This could have been prevented 18 different ways. Literally,
I know so many ways, but none of them worked.
Yep. If Viserys had named Daemon his heir instead of Rhaenyra, if Viserys had never made Otto Hightower his hand, if Viserys had never married Alicent, all of this shit, the
she would have just known what her said.
Yeah, exactly.
In terms of looking to next week, I think the character I'm looking forward to kind of exploring, at least in the next couple of episodes, is Daemon, just because of kind of his him kind of more faced with the realization of how he is, and especially because it seems like we're not going to have Nettles this season, or actually it's confirmed we're not going to have Nettles.
We're not having Nettles this season.
Is someone he kind of leaned on in absence of Rhaenyra in the books, and kind of ended up going down his own path with. It really makes you wonder what's going to happen in terms of like, are the actions he takes going to be different? Is he going to? I don't know. I feel like there's a lot more unpredictability with Daemon in particular than any other character at the moment. So I really am curious to see what happens to him in the next half of the season. So.
For me,
Yeah.
I think that my interest lies in mostly I'm like, okay, we're getting Rook's Rest next week. So now at this point, I'm really just looking forward to the sowing of the seeds. Ultimately, that's like kind of where I'm invested. I'm invested. They've done very, very interesting, painstaking work to set up the dragon seeds. I'm very interested to kind of see where that goes, and I'm very excited to see the other dragons too. Like that's the shit, and they're gonna need it after next week. So with that
That's
being
what
said,
we want,
guys,
damn it.
yes, exactly.
think-
So with that being said,
I would have to say one more thing though.
yeah,
In my opinion, call me crazy, call me stick in the head. I'm kind of curious to see how far Kristen goes as a character. I think he is so
Not far.
like
not far,
okay, but I mean he
not
just
far.
seems he just seems so sinister. I mean, Damon of course has a lot of promising storytelling that I think we'll naturally see regardless. So I know we're gonna get that because I like Damon as a character for sure. But Kristen, he stirs the pot. So
Oh, he does.
So I'm definitely curious to see. It sounds crazy, but I'm definitely curious to see what he does to get his way, literally.
Oh,
So
No, that's a
indeed.
valid shout.
that's
Because you haven't
yeah.
read the book, right?
I read a little bit, but I never finished it. So technically,
Okay.
I'm
So-
coming. Yeah,
Okay,
this
so
is
he's got
all
he's got a fresh perspective when it comes
Exactly.
Yes,
to
indeed. So
clean
so gentlemen, we're gonna leave it at that. All I'm gonna ask of you before we get out of here is your final thoughts, your star rating of this episode, and where the good people can follow you on the interweb. Spencer, as the new kid on the block here, I'm gonna start with you. What are your final thoughts on this episode? What is your
final
star
thoughts.
rating,
Final thoughts.
and where can people follow you?
Okay. Final thoughts. I think overall we got a great startup to the major conflict. We're gonna see bloodbath war. We're gonna see characters meeting each other. We're gonna see other handpicked characters coming together to create alliances. We're gonna see the two parties actually start to hash it out. Overall, I think this
Good way to put
this
it.
episode, yeah, yeah, and I just can't wait to see how this episode has stirred the pot and will continue going on, forward into the second season. Star rating, I have to say, if we're doing out of 5,
Out of 5.
probably say 4.5. This is one of my favorite episodes so far, other than the first one.
Yeah, it just keeps
And
escalating with each episode.
yeah,
Getting better.
it just keeps the conflict just keeps going up and up. My attention is always there.
Yeah.
So,
and we're about to reach that apex, maybe.
Yes,
Oh,
indeed.
yeah.
and I didn't read the book, so I'm entirely so. And you guys could also follow me at Instagram at Spence 3SS, or Smoke Society official on Instagram. Yes.
Yes, indeed. Go follow him. He's got an awesome career
Please.
brewing.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, and then Eli, all of those things that I just said before, Dispenser.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree. Like a 4.5, maybe pushing 5, but I
Yeah.
want to try and reserve 5 for a select few episodes, especially just because I'm paying attention to the small details behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think 4.5. I think this is definitely one of the best episodes. I think it tops last week as the best episode for this season so far.
Oh yeah.
And I'm loving the character dynamics. I'm loving just the interactions. I'm loving the stuff we're getting that isn't in the book. I feel like the more they can give us that's like this is just I'm gonna eat it up every single time.
Couldn't agree more.
But yeah, if you guys want to follow me, I want to start a YouTube channel, podcast at some point. I keep saying I'm gonna get around to it, but it's also me saying like I'm gonna quit drinking after this last beer. Like it's just we're running into a bit of hurdles, but it's on the books, it's on the cards for the end of the year, hopefully. Yeah, otherwise, if you want to just give me a follow, shoot me a DM, talk about Game of Thrones, storytelling in general, you can find me at eholicky45 on Instagram. So that's where I am.
All right.
Brilliant.
As excellent as per usual. Of course, you guys can follow me with everything going on at Movie Nerd Reviews across all platforms, at Official Talkin TV Podcast across all platforms. Be sure to subscribe to us if you're watching us on YouTube. Follow us on Twitch. This episode will be available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts tomorrow morning, in addition to our recap of The Boys and The Bear, which dropped this season. Blockbuster TV season is on full swing, but unfortunately, since we're done with June officially, it will wrap up officially. We are beginning the wind down as we get into July and we start to prep for the rest of the movie summer now that the pace has kind of been set. So with that being said, people, from myself, from Eli, from Spence, We are counting down from Dragon Watch, and we'll see you guys next week for Rook's Rest.
I was reminding me I was following King Viserys' death.
My brother was a slave to his omens and portents. Anything to make his feckless reign appear to have purpose.
What are we going to do about it?
Did you really think that you could just fly about the realm, trying to steal my brother's throne?